Hi, Mary here, and this is a review of my favorite books of 2020. Now, all of these books didn't come out in 2020, but some of them did, and I read them all in 2020. Like many of you, I imagine I did a lot of reading this year. So these were my favorites. Let's get to it. The first favorite is Rodum by Curtis Sittenfeld. I almost said by Hillary Clinton. No, but it is about Hillary Clinton, and yet it is a novel. And if you're confused, I'll explain. So, Rodum is the fictional retelling of Hillary Clinton's life if she had not married Bill. And yeah, right? Very imaginative, very cool. What a bold choice to write fiction about a living person. I've really admired Curtis Sittenfeld ever since I read American Wife, which was similarly like fiction about Laura Bush. I think it came out 10 or so years ago. So I was really anticipating this novel. And when it came out, I think in maybe January or February of this year, I couldn't wait to read it. It totally met my expectations. I couldn't put it down. It's just such a fascinating thing to read someone's fiction about a living person who, we already have some kind of impression and understanding of, even if it's just as a public figure. Loved this book. Her writing is fantastic. Another favorite of this year is Veritas, which is a true story. It's a Harvard professor, a con man, and the Gospel of Jesus's Wife by Ariel Sabar. And it is, again, could not put it down. It's like reading a John Grisham novel, except that it's true. It involves the story of a con man, this dude in Florida who passed off this document, this ancient papyrus, as a lost gospel, which purportedly was proof that Jesus had a wife. So the fact that he was able to pull this over on a number of people who are really as the book calls it, like the star academics in the world of ancient gospels is stunning. And but that alone is like the least interesting part of the book. The most interesting part of the book are just the crazy little turns and events and the characters who come up who you don't expect. There are people living in their basements who just love this stuff and don't even work in academia who become pivotal players. Great, great read. I won't stop talking about it to people, including in my family. I made everyone talk about it at Christmas dinner. The next book is Wintering. This is a memoir by a friend of mine, Catherine May. This is the UK edition, but it is now out in the US as well. Just saying that in case you don't recognize the cover. It's a memoir about a season of her life she went through after her husband became ill. But ultimately, it's the story of how a winter, going through winter, can be critical for us as humans and restorative to us, and how we don't need to be afraid of it and we don't need to fight it. I think it's the kind of book that can be really comforting and really inspiring in a way for this period that we've been going through this year. The next book is a cookbook, Nothing Fancy by Allison Roman, which came out in 2019, but man, did I use this a lot in 2020. This cookbook is so fantastic. There's a lemon turmeric cake that I made at least a dozen times this year. Also a citrus chicken that I make about once a week. Mine is, as you can see, I have little flags. I also give this a lot as gifts. It's really approachable for people like me who are fairly new to cooking. I've only been cooking the past couple of years. So it's great. It's great all around. Highly recommend. Love Allison. The next is a book of poetry. You may know of Kate Baer. She's become a bit well known as an Instagram poet. She posts a lot of her poetry on Instagram. That's how I discovered her. And her collection came out this year. It's called What Kind of Woman? And it really, I can only take it in a few poems at a time, if that, maybe one at a time, because they just really speak to what it's like to be a woman in a way that I haven't read a lot that speaks to it in a way that that she's able to. So I'll read you one of her poems called New Year. Look at it, cold and wet like a newborn calf. I want to tell it everything. How we struggled, how we tore out our hair and thumbed through rusted nails just to stand for its birth. I want to say, look how far we've come. Promise our resolutions. But what does a baby care for oaths and pledges? It only wants to live. So, and it also has such a beautiful cover. I just love this. I love this cover. Okay. Speaking of covers, truly my favorite, the last book, my favorite book of 2020. Also my favorite cover of 2020. Totally coincidentally. The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. This novel, again, couldn't put it down. I think I stayed up quite late reading it. It's the story of two sisters, two twins from a fictional town in Louisiana who basically are very close and then flee their hometown when they're 16. And they go to New Orleans. And one of the sisters then disappears and sets out to create a whole new life for herself. Void of her past. She wants to completely abandon her life history and start over. And this is the story of what happens from there. So it's so beautifully written. And you care so much for these characters. They're so rich and so well developed. And it's just a beautiful book. I mean, look at that cover. Look at it. Can't even handle it. So those are my favorite books of 2020. Let me know what your favorite book of 2020 was. I would love to hear. And I wish everybody a happy new year. Thanks for watching.